Hello, and welcome to Ghostability with myself, Paranormal Mitch.
And Paranormal Tej.
Today's episode is about consent, which is something that I think is super important with investigations or with haunted dolls.
Yes. And by the way, welcome back.
Oh, hello. That's right.
Welcome back. We took a couple week break. It is good to be back. We had a lot of things going on, a lot of videos other than Go Spill the Tea.
For sure.
You have an obnoxious amount of Fairy Day content to watch, but we are back. Consent is something that we have mentioned in a lot of episodes, but we have never discussed specifically. And I think consent is the piece of spirit keeping that can take you from a good spirit keeper to a great or amazing spirit keeper. It is huge. It shows spirits that you are trustworthy and that you are a safe person to be around for them. So.
Yeah, and I think as well, it allows you to have a really, really positive relationship between yourself and your spirits, which makes it really great. And even in investigations too, you can build that, not necessarily build a huge relationship, but at least get some respect right off the bat.
Yeah, and a lot of consent, giving a lot of consent to spirits gives them a lot of autonomy. And when spirits have autonomy, they are much more communicative. They are much more calm. They are much more available to interact with. So it's a win-win on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of going over some of the main key points we're going to talk about today. Number one, why consent matters in every relationship, even those we cannot fully understand. Obviously, these spirits have the ability to say yes or no, and that relationship, even though it may be a little bit cloudy sometimes, is still super, super important. Along the same lines, there is a misconception that death eliminates a person's autonomy, or because we are the living, we have a right to be able to talk to them. Obviously, that's not the case. Next thing is setting the tone, which is respect over entertainment. That is a big one. We've talked about this a lot in the past of, spirit keeping versus paranormal entertainment. That's a big thing we're going to talk about today. Lastly is really going over the true definition of what consent means in the context of paranormal investigations and with specifically haunted doll collecting.
Yeah, and I think the big one that I would like to highlight, because this is where I usually see consent go out the window for people, is that entertainment piece. And even less than entertainment, that curiosity piece. Like, oh, I'm so interested in this spirit. I'm so interested. I want to know so bad. So people start to push or start to make assumptions and things like that. And consent kind of goes out the window because you're trying to fuel your own curiosity. And a lack of response is the same as a no response.
It's still an answer.
Yeah, a lack of response still means no. So keeping that in mind on your investigations is huge, even if it's something that you're so curious about. I have so many spirits in our house that there are things I would love to know about them, but they don't feel comfortable sharing it, or they don't want to, or they're not ready. And, we don't push those issues. No means no. And maybe at one time they would like to share that. And if and when they do, we will address that. But until they're ready, it's just not something that we touch.
Well, and it's very similar to like a friendship. Like you're not going to like meet a new friend and be like, hey, tell me your entire life story, the last however many years of everything that has happened to you. Like this doesn't make any sense. So I think the same rule applies to spirits.
Yeah, absolutely agree. All right. So before we start, let's just go over a basic level. What is consent? What does that mean for spirits? So consent is permission that is freely given, informed, ongoing, and can be withdrawn at any time. So your spirit feels really comfortable videotaping today, and tomorrow they decide that's not for them. That's okay. Also, I think informed really matters here. It is important that just because they're spirits doesn't mean they don't understand. So explaining to them what you are asking from them in detail so they understand what they are agreeing to. Sometimes, we can ask leading questions on accident that leads them to a yes because we didn't give them enough information to know if they even want to say no to something. So making sure you're giving them all of the information that they need to make an informed decision on the matter is a huge part of consent.
I think another part of that too is giving them the time to be able to make the decision.
Yes.
I think sometimes people rush through some of the questions. I was like, oh, oh, da, 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 oh, oh, I said this. And then they, immediately move on to the next thing. They take
Mhm.
it as a no. Like sometimes the spirit needs some time to kind of process it or understand what's going on. Or like, especially like we have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Like they may not fully grasp the situation until they're talking about it and go, oh, this is something I really don't want to talk about, which is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you've gone halfway through the conversation and then they decide they're done,
That's fine.
that's fine too. Living people deserve consent, right? We talk about that all the time. The point here is, why should spirits deserve any less, right? They were, in most cases, not all, they were people, and so they are deserving of the same grace and dignity and autonomy that we are. And so that is kind of the key overarching principle of this entire episode. And I think it's very important in this what is consent piece to think about viewing spirits as individuals rather than as just haunted objects. Something to explore, something to learn about, something creepy to collect, something unique, something cool. It goes much far beyond that. While you may be very interested in what you're doing, it's very important that they are individuals first, and not just your quirky hobby that you get entertainment from. So those are some of the key principles that we're going to be going into today.
Yeah, and I think that really emphasizes like the importance of why it matters, right? Because like you
Mhm.
said, the spirits were once living people. They had their for most of the time. They had emotions, they share a lot of traumas, things like that. So they have a right to be able to make decisions, just like we do. I think the big one that we're going to talk about today, and we've already talked about a little bit, is that a lot of these investigations will prioritize curiosity over, appropriate compassion. Obviously, we want to know like all the secrets and specifics and things like that. They might not know the answers. They may not want to share their answers. We have to be able to take that no with grace. I think that's
Yeah.
really, really important.
And just because they are living in your home, in your space, they are your haunted doll, they're also entitled to their own privacy
Yeah.
as well.
And I think we've found, with our spirits here and on investigations, the more respect you give, the better quality communication you're going to have.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of times, either with paranormal entertainment or sometimes on some TV shows, it's very accusatory or it's not really the most appropriate way to try and communicate. We found that when we're respectful, we get awesome responses.
Yeah.
And a lot of times spirits open up a lot more. Like we've learned awesome things about spirits we've met, especially at, locations, because we've given them the opportunity to communicate what they want to talk about instead of just being like, oh, how did you die? What happened? Like that's a really big question that a lot of people aren't just going to tell a stranger.
My question with that one is always like, why do we care so much about that? Like, does it really matter? You know what I mean? It's like, if they want to share it, yeah, it matters. But it's like, why is that the question that we always go to of like, we've got to know? Like,
Yeah.
what does that say about us as investigators when we're obsessed with knowing how somebody died and everything that's wrong with them? And I think that's something to really self reflect on too, is like, why do I need to know these things so bad if a spirit's not comfortable with sharing it? I think that self-reflection piece is really huge. Is having an insight into why we're even so focused on the things we're focused on asking.
Yeah.
So
And sometimes, like we've said many times, don't get lost in the sauce.
don't get lost
Don't get
in the
lost in the
sauce.
sauce.
My
Sometimes you're
favorite quote.
there and it's like, wow, all this is going so well. And we have this big, train going. And then, you may realize start to ask questions that aren't the most appropriate or the communication will stop really abruptly. Don't get lost.
Yeah.
Remember your boundaries,
Yeah.
remember their boundaries, and usually things go a lot better.
Yeah. So now we're going to go through like, how do we do this in practice? We kind of talked about some of the overall principles, but how do we do this? What does this look like on an investigation, whether that be in your house with your own haunted doll, at a location, whatever you're doing, this applies. So before beginning your investigation, first thing you should do, introduce yourself. And we also, something we both really like to do is explain why you're there. Why are you wanting to talk to them? What is your intention behind being there? I think, even when you're working with haunted dolls in your house, but especially at locations, they have been investigated by so many people. And, as we know, not every single person is there for the right reasons. There are a lot of people who go on ghost tours and, just want to have a good night. They know nothing about spirits. They don't have the experience to even begin to even think about these concepts. And these spirits have had, I can almost guarantee every single spirit has had some bad interaction with a person who didn't know that they were haunted, didn't know there was a spirit there, didn't know quite how to run an investigation, prioritize entertainment over respect. They have had bad experiences. So we find it very important to not only say, hey, I'm so and so and I'm so and so. And not only just us, every single person that's there with you should introduce themselves, and shouldn't be a stranger, and explain, what are your intentions. So we will say things like, hey, we are just here because we want to talk to you. We mean no harm. We care about you. We're really interested in talking to you and just learning more about who you are. You can share as much as you want or as little as you want. It does not matter. And if you don't want to interact with us at all, that is perfectly fine. If you do, great. We would love to spend time with you.
Also, I think it's important to remember that a lot of these spirits have had some significant traumas
Yeah. In
and
their lives. Yeah.
in their lives. So if they have a stranger coming up to them trying to talk to them, that may, they may
Yeah.
have had a previous experience with that in the past.
Yeah. For sure. So, the next thing we do is ask if anyone would like to communicate. This seems obvious, but we're asking rather than telling. We're going to do this spirit box session right now. Somebody talk to me. Who's there? You've removed consent. Sometimes it's just the slight wording is, hey, is there anybody there who wants to talk to us? And then they come on rather than, okay, tell me who's here. That is a huge difference. And when you're asking, you are giving that spirit the autonomy to say, there's nobody there.
Yeah. And
Or just not show up in the spirit box at
and
all.
tone matters as well.
Tone matters. Yeah. Yeah. We are asking, we are respectful, we are having a conversation. We're not barking orders. The next piece is making it very clear that participation in the sessions is voluntary. This is a huge one. We have had a lot of experiences, especially with children, but it can also happen with teenagers and spirits who have had a lot of their autonomy removed when they were alive. We want to make it clear that that participation is voluntary because a lot of spirits will people please. They may have no interest in participating in that session and they feel like they have to. And so we always very explicitly will say, like, you don't have to participate in this. Or we can stop at any time. Those types of things make a big difference, so that you're not running into a spirit who is participating simply because they want to please you or they feel like they're supposed to. I think people pleasing is another thing that can be huge in relationships with haunted dolls. At locations, I don't see people pleasing quite as much, but I do see it with our haunted dolls where they care about us and we take care of them, and we share our home with them. So there are a lot of spirits who, like, they really want to make us happy, and as a result they will put themselves last to do that, and we don't want to have that kind of dynamic where it's, I'm not in the mood to talk, but like Taylor really wants to talk to me tonight, so I'm going to do it even though like I'm not feeling the best or up for it. So making sure that they know that it is a voluntary experience. The other thing is allowing silence without assuming spirits are obligated to respond. We mentioned this briefly earlier. Silence is still an answer. Silence is okay. Silence is still an answer. And silence doesn't always mean there's no spirit there. I think a lot of times when we don't get a response, we are quick to jump to, oh, well, it's not haunted. Sometimes it means that there is somebody there and they're not ready to speak to you yet, or they don't want to.
Have patience.
And so, yeah, we have gone to some of the most haunted locations in the world and gotten nothing. We've gone to multiple locations that we never posted online because we didn't get anything. And I think that that is important too. It doesn't mean that everybody who has had a paranormal experience at that location is invalid and was lying and making stuff up. It just means at that time, on that day, we didn't get a response because there was nobody who wanted to communicate. And that is okay. Don't force those results. No answer is perfectly acceptable.
And I think it's hard because a lot of times, coming from the lens of like investigations, like you may have traveled a long way to get there, you may have paid to spend time there. So sometimes not getting an answer may feel really frustrating.
Yeah.
But I think going into it knowing that that is a possibility is really important as a mindset to
Yeah.
be in before you start.
Yeah, and being okay with that. You know, we've gone to a couple actually haunted hotels that like we had really like we were really excited about and like nothing happened. It was just, it was just a hotel. Spirits didn't want to do anything and that's okay. That's totally fine. Walk away and say, "Hey, I stayed at a cool hotel for the weekend. Find something to do. Go into the town, go get dinner, whatever." Have an alternative that if you did travel there or whatever, have an alternative that you can do instead that still makes your experience enjoyable without putting pressure on the spirits to perform for you. This is not a circus. Take your circus tent somewhere else.
Yes.
Yep.
I think another one that I really want to mention about before the investigation is being respectful to this space. We have had multiple times where, like, if we're at a cemetery, for example, we'll help clean up
Yep.
some of the things or put away garbage or, brush away a grave or something like that. And we've had spirits come on and say, "Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
That's why I want to talk to you."
Or ask us to
Or
do
ask
it.
us to do
Yeah.
it. So if you go in and you're, disrespectful to their space, whether it's, spirits you live with or at a haunted location, like that's where, that's their home. So if you go in and you're, throwing garbage everywhere or you're, making jokes about things that are inappropriate in the space or you're like,
Making fun of
making
things
fun of
or
things, drawing things on the wall, whatever silly stuff you're going to do,
taking things from the
taking
location as a
things,
souvenir.
big no no. That's not appropriate and it will make your communication much, much, much more challenging to be successful.
Yes, yes, you are in their home, and I don't care how much money you paid to be there, that is their home. You don't have the right.
Yeah.
So,
So now that we've gone over before, let's go for during.
mhm,
So, like we said before, it is entirely possible for a spirit to say, I want to be done in the middle of a conversation. That is absolutely appropriate. And you should respect that decision that they have made. So it's important to check in a couple times. Obviously, you don't have to ask them like every single sentence, but if let's say you're doing something that's particularly sensitive, sometimes asking that 2 or 3 times to make sure they're okay with it can be really helpful and create a really positive environment.
Mitchell
Um,
will say, like, if they go really quiet, Mitchell will be like, "Hey, is there anyone still there that wants to talk, or are we done?" Like, he'll like, if there's silence for too long, Mitchell will be like, "Okay, is this you telling us you're done?" And see what they
yeah.
how they respond.
And some examples of things you can say is, would you like to continue? Is this okay? Would you rather stop? Do you want to change the topic? Is there something else you'd like to talk about? All of these things can be really helpful. And if you have trouble coming up with these things, during the time of, write them down.
Mhm.
Have a card of like some questions you could ask or, things if you get stuck. Like that's totally fine. No one's expecting you to memorize all these things or magically be good at communication with spirits. It's hard.
It is.
And a lot of times
Still hard for us
it's hard. Oh, of
sometimes.
course, it's
Yeah.
hard for everyone. So if you need a little bit of help, like writing something down is totally cool. Um, Other couple things, pay attention if activity decreases after certain topics, like Taylor mentioned. If you go into something about their past and they don't like it, talk about something else that might help. And then changes in atmosphere too. Trust your gut. So if you feel like there's a big shift in the energy or something happens, or maybe you get like a loud bang or something like that, obviously you don't want to assume what they're, trying to communicate.
Mhm.
So it's okay to ask for clarity. But if it's become pretty clear that there are some signs and you communicate and you're said like, hey, I want to be done, then that's okay. But being able to kind of trust how you feel, like your body is one of your most important instruments that you have. So pay attention to it. And if you, don't feel like you have a good sense of that, that's okay. You just trust how you feel and go from there.
Yeah. All right. So the next one, Sensitive topics require extra care. This should go without saying, but I'm going to give the list just in case you're curious. So avoid immediately asking about cause of death, murder, suicide, abuse, trauma, personal losses. Those are really, really difficult. And depending on time period, religion as well. Religious persecution, we just had a session that involved this last night. The spirit brought it up. We didn't expect it. We didn't know how to respond. If they bring those things up, the approach we tend to take, even if they have initiated that topic, there will be spirits who will bring that stuff up with you and want to tell you about it. We, even when we're in those situations, we're very careful about asking like questions about those to have them expand. Mitchell tends to, in sessions, back off and just follow their lead and let them express what they want to express and not put them in a position to expand further if they're not comfortable with it. Sometimes they will be very surface level and then they'll be like, okay, let's talk
Yeah.
about toys.
And let's also remember you have consent as well.
Yeah.
So if let's say there's, like Taylor's example, there's a spirit talking about religion, and maybe you have had an experience and that brings up some sensitive topics for you. It's okay for
Yeah.
you to say, "Hey, I'm not comfortable talking
Let's
about
talk about
this. Let's
something
talk about
else.
something else." Or, you know what? That's a lot. I don't really know the best way to talk with you about that right now. Or I'm sorry, I don't really know what to
Yeah.
say.
Or let's take
Those
a
are
break and pick it up
Yeah,
later.
those are okay
Yeah.
things to say. You don't have to have something to
You don't have to sit
say.
there and be triggered if
Sit there and
it's
be
too
triggered. Yeah,
much.
you should be able to walk away from a conversation as well.
Yeah.
It's consent goes both ways.
Yeah. And I think, we have probably said this on 20 episodes, but imagine meeting a stranger and asking them the most painful question of their life within seconds. In a lot of these cases, the passing is the most traumatic thing. Be cautious, be aware of that, be aware of yourself. Um, Build rapport before discussing these difficult subjects. Especially when you're working with haunted dolls, you start to know that spirit. If it's a brand new spirit, we tend to back off. If it's a spirit that we have worked with dozens and dozens of times and they have brought it up before and we kind of know what they're looking for in that discussion. I think Anne Marie is a good example of this. Like Anne Marie likes she has a horrific situation, but she brings it up and she wants to talk about her feelings. She wants your advice. She wants you to know how she's feeling that day. And so, we know with her that if she's talking about it, it's because she wants some feedback or wants advice or wants to know what we think she should do. We wouldn't go passing out unsolicited advice on those topics to a spirit at a location. They may just be wanting to share, they may not want your advice. And so I think, sometimes a good if a spirit brings it up, you can also ask them what they're looking for. Hey, are you looking for me to listen, or do you want advice on how to think about this? Like, what are you looking for in telling me that information? And follow their lead on it, because nobody wants unsolicited advice on a topic that they're not comfortable with. Um, and then accepting that some stories just may never be yours to hear. I know that that is a very difficult concept to grasp for people who are investigators. We're investigators for a reason, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm not curious, right? Like, I, we become investigators because, we care, we are interested in the topic, it fascinates us, but some stories will just never be yours to hear, and being willing to accept that. Um, if a conversation ends or a conversation doesn't happen, we have spirits in our house who I know nothing about. They've been here for years. We talk to them all the time, but giving us information is just not something that they're going to do. And we have to accept that, like, we can care about them without knowing everything. And that is perfectly fine.
Yeah,
So,
let's shift gears a little bit. We're really going to focus on haunted dolls
yep.
for our next topic here,
Yeah.
which is something that we specialize in. So consent and haunted dolls is we've talked about it a little bit, but obviously a huge piece. I think the big thing to remember if we were going to, like, say a couple of things. Number one is, just because, they're here and their vessel's here is not like, does not mean that they don't have the ability to say no. It's not free and open conversations all the time. All these rules still apply to a spirit, like Taylor said, that's maybe been here for years, or is new, or is not new. Like, all of these rules still apply. And it's okay, even if you have a really good relationship, to check in with a lot of these things. Um, Another thing is to ask before a lot of things, such as moving the doll or moving the vessel, bringing guests in the home, filming or video recording conversations with them or them in general, conducting sessions, introducing new equipment. These are all things that you can have good conversations about.
Changing their
Changing
vessel.
their vessel, what? That's a big one. But like, even the space around them is really, really huge. Like, I get in trouble a lot of times because the spirits in my office are like, you got to clean your room, it's not respectful. I'm like, I understand that, and then I do, but that's important to them, so I need to make sure I follow through with that as well. um and then, if communication becomes less frequent or stops, that's probably a time where they need a little bit of a break. That's totally fine. Give them a couple months or a couple weeks and then come back and say, something like, hey, I'm here if you want to talk, but you don't have to. Let's still spend some time together. We can, watch some TV if you'd like. And if they don't want to, that's cool. But you can still share the space with them. I think that's something that we've heard our spirits really like, is like small things that we can just be in the same space as them, which can be really nice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, recording and sharing evidence. This is so huge. Um, don't sacrifice your morals because you're a content creator. And, or even if you're not a content creator and you're in online haunted doll communities where you're sharing photos, videos, etc. Um, not everything needs to be uploaded. There are things that obviously can, if the spirit's comfortable with it. The spirit is fine with showing that aspect of themselves, but use your judgment. Not everything needs to be said. Um, Even if you are a content creator and you feel pressured by your audience to share information, it is okay to say no. Those spirits and their privacy comes first. So considering, is sharing necessary, does what I'm sharing honor the spirit, and is identifying information being exposed? This is huge. We have spirits in this house that you could find online. You will never be able to find them online because I don't share the identifying information to do that. Or if you're working with a spirit who passed in the 2000s and has living relatives, not sharing identifying information where their living relative could see that and really, be upset by it. Those are huge. When we go to locations, sometimes we have talked to spirits who we find the headstone and they passed away 3 years ago. I'm not going to post that online for their family to see. These things are sensitive, and it is not only the spirit's privacy but also the family's privacy as well. And we need to be mindful of that. Another thing I try to think about is like not sharing my spirit's worst moments on the internet, even if some of our spirit's worst moments are the best evidence we have, because they're upset. And when spirits are upset, things happen, doors slamming, cabinets flying open, like, those typical things. We don't share those things because I'm not going to publicize a spirit's worst moment for your entertainment
For views.
value, for views, for evidence, for, oh my gosh, look at me, my haunted doll did that. No, like that was a moment where they were at their worst, they were feeling down. That is not appropriate for me to be sharing. And it's not I asked that spirit, "Oh, can I share it?" No, I just don't do it. Because it's not considerate for me to even ask. Like I don't even, it's just like, okay, and I delete the video. I don't even keep it. Because it doesn't feel right for me to be, even if it was something I caught on my security camera, it's like that footage doesn't exist. You guys don't need to know about it. It's not important for you to see a spirit suffering. Like that's not okay for me. So I never share that. Other things is when we have spirit box sessions and some really, really traumatic things come out. I don't share those either. Like if I wouldn't, the way I think about it is if I wouldn't want somebody to post that about me, I don't post it at all. Other things to be aware of is if that spirit is talking about somebody else, somebody in your life, a family member, a friend, another spirit, you know, I don't post those unless I have the consent of the person. Hey, my spirit brought up this. Is that okay to share or not? My spirit hung out with you and they said they loved you. Is that okay to post? Not using the information you get to um it just doesn't need to go out there. It's really not that important. Like, we don't need to post everything. Even if you're somebody that is a content creator. And not every meaningful interaction needs an audience, keeping that in mind. And think about it as yourself. Would you want your friend to post that about you? If the answer is no, don't post it. Don't even ask them to post it. So I
Yes,
feel strongly about
I can tell.
that.
Next thing we're gonna talk about is group investigations.
Hell yeah.
This is
Where stuff gets messy.
tricky. This is tricky. I think it's very important before you go in, let's say you have a group of like 6 people, to have a good understanding of specific people's roles and how you can go forward as respectfully as possible with the space around you. And we have had experience with this positively and negatively, and it can be a very uncomfortable thing to work through, but I think super, super important to confront before it becomes a problem. If we think about it, multiple investigators trying to talk at once or trying to communicate at once may become really confusing. The spirit may not know what to do or who to talk to, or if they already are very shy about communicating, they're not going to want to hear from, 4 different people at once asking all these really crazy questions. That can be really overwhelming really fast.
If they have
So,
3 questions rapid fired at them by 3 different people, they don't know what they're supposed to answer.
yeah.
And if you're not the one asking the questions either, you should be quiet. Not having a side conversation, those things can make that spirit feel like you're not being respectful and you don't care about what they have to say.
Yes. So a couple of rules, or not rules, but a couple of suggestions we have for the group investigations. Have one designated speaker. Allow for pauses. Give the spirits time to answer. If you're doing something like the Estes method, have a clear purpose. Avoid treating sessions like a game or 4 views or something like that, and make sure you end it respectfully, which we're going to talk about more in a couple minutes.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is if you see something go wonky, say something. We have been in groups of people where somebody is acting a fool, and I have had to be the asshole to be like, hey, this is not acceptable. If you see something that you feel is disrespectful toward that spirit, could lead to that spirit, being harmed, their autonomy is being taken away. The most right thing you can do, and on an investigation team, on a group investigation, if people are there for the right reasons, they're going to understand you saying like, hey, I really don't think this is a good idea. Hey, this has gone too far. Hey, I'm uncomfortable. Hey, this spirit feels uncomfortable. You can tell the spirit is uncomfortable. Like, we need to back off on the questions, or we need to stop this session, or things that are unethical are going on. Like, if you are seeing something, it's wrong, and you're not saying something, you are just as responsible as the person who's doing it, when you're in a group. And that stinks because we have been on investigations at places with people we don't even know that well. And I have had to speak up and say something. And that can be very uncomfortable just as a person when you're like, nobody wants to tell somebody off. And you can do it nicely and be like, hey, like, this doesn't feel right. But it is very important that you speak up because the one who's paying for that group investigation, those actions, like the person that's suffering is the spirit. You guys get your fun time. That spirit had to suffer through 10 people acting a fool. So if you do see something, if you see somebody at a location wilding out, disrespecting, taking stuff, like, say something. Definitely say something so you can give that spirit their autonomy back. And that is a huge responsibility. And I know that acting in that way is not for everybody. Like, introverts are a lot of times like, hell no, I'm not going to tell somebody that they're doing something wrong. But that is just part of the responsibility of this work, is being willing to do the right thing even when it's hard. We have to put the spirit first. It's not about us, it's about them, and it's their home. So the next part is recognizing no.
Big one.
Yes. No can look a lot of ways beyond just saying no. So, possible ways that a spirit may communicate boundaries. Silence. We already talked about that.
Yep.
Um, All the equipment suddenly stops. Nothing's happening for a prolonged period of time.
Equipment silence.
Yeah. Um, Repeated goodbye or request to leave, get out of here. I hate you.
We've gotten that.
Name calling can be
Mm-hmm.
no. Um, Feelings that the interaction has concluded. Again, trust your gut. If you feel like that spirit's no longer there, maybe move on. Changes in an emotional atmosphere. Mitchell talked about this earlier. If you're starting to feel off, that may be a sign of something. Not every quiet moment means equipment failure, or a lack of a spirit. Sometimes no is simply no. If you traveled across the country to a location to investigate somewhere and you've been told to leave 100 times,
Sucks.
sucks. It sucks.
Leave.
That's the risk we take. Not every place we go is going to lead to a success. And just because you sign up to go to a location doesn't mean that the spirits at the location want to work with you. And we need to be willing and able to accept and respect that.
Yes.
No can look a lot of ways, and we need to be aware of when they're communicating no in another way. No can also be, I'm chucking stuff at you.
That's a pretty clear
you know,
indicator of like,
we
maybe
had
I'm
that.
done.
We had that at a location. We had a spirit knock Morgan in the head with a backpack. I mean, he was saying no. He was saying, "This is my house. Get out." And like we packed our crap and we left. No is no. So, yeah.
And I think another thing with a lot of investigations, at least that we've been to, sometimes they're really big places. Like they're multiple buildings, or they are, lots of different spaces, or
Relocate.
Relocating can be huge. A different area may have a different spirit, may have a different vibe, may have a different energy to it, and that's fine. A lot of times, it would be impossible for us to investigate all of the buildings that or all of the spaces that are available in some of these places that we investigate. So it's okay to go somewhere and be like, this is we're not having success here, go somewhere else.
Yeah. We had that at the Congress Hotel.
Yes, we did.
In our room, we had this like spirit who was not super nice, was like threatening and stuff of that nature. Clearly was not interested in us at all. And we packed up our stuff and we went to like the opposite side of the hotel in a different area down a random hallway. Talked to literally the
The
nicest
coolest
kid on
little kid.
nicest
He was
kid
so
on the
excited to
planet.
talk to us.
He was so thrilled. He was
lovely.
so grateful we were there. So just move.
Yeah, that's
Move.
totally acceptable. So next one we'll talk about is ending communication respectfully. This is another big one. Make sure that you thank the spirit for participating in that conversation, acknowledging their time, announcing that the investigation is ending or that
Mhm.
space is ending can be a very clear cutoff, and can once again allow for, especially if you're thinking about like, in your home with your own spirits, allow for better communication in the future. If they have a really clear understanding of when things start, when things stop, it's very easy for them to be able to know when to communicate effectively as well. Lastly, like Taylor already mentioned, do not assume that they are going to continue when the equipment is off, and do not assume that if the equipment is going off that they don't want to continue. That's when it's really good to be able to try and give them the time to be able to understand what's happening and get a clear indicator. And if you don't know, it's okay to give it your best guess and say, you know what, I can't exactly tell if you want to communicate or not right now. We're going to pack up our things. It seems like you don't want to talk. I apologize if you do. This is kind of what we're going to do. Have a nice day. Thank you for everything. We appreciate your time. It's okay to do that
Yeah.
too.
We always thank them.
Yeah, because communication is hard and sometimes it's unclear what's being communicated. So it's okay to be able to be wrong sometimes. It's going to happen. You're never going to be right 100% of the time.
All right. So some common misconceptions, we mentioned these throughout, but just um rolling through them. They're dead, so consent doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Still people, that matters. If they answer once, they consent forever. Just because that spirit wanted to interact with you the first time doesn't mean they're going to want to interact with you the second time. Even in your own house, you're working with your haunted dolls. You may have the greatest conversation with a spirit one day, and the next week they are in a bad mood and they have absolutely no interest in talking to you. That's okay.
We've had that happen.
We definitely have. Consent is not forever. It is not permanent. It is very fluid, and we roll with the punches on that. Buying a haunted doll means owning the spirit. You paid for their vessel. You own the vessel, but it is their vessel and it is their spirit. They can choose to leave your house at any time. They can, decide they want to be rehomed. Any of those things. And it is our responsibility to do what is right for them and what they want, even though you may have paid for the vessel.
And that's one reason why we've talked about this in the past. Have a really clear understanding of what you're getting yourself into. You may pay $100 for a vessel, then get there and go, you know what, this is not a good fit. And you have to figure out what works
Yep.
best for the vessel.
Yep. Um, Provoking spirits gets better evidence. This is a huge one. There are a lot of people that provoke for evidence sake. I think that is a huge misconception. I truly, genuinely believe that like the best evidence you can get comes from a solid relationship. I think the other thing to keep in mind with this like provoking spirits gets better evidence. Again, this like obsession with evidence, and like yes, I am obsessive about my evidence. I really am, but we can't let our obsession with the evidence skew our behavior. It's very important that we act ethically regardless of the type of evidence we are walking away with. If you have been kind for 40 minutes and gotten no response, that doesn't mean you start provoking to get a response because you need something to video to post online. We hold these standards throughout the investigation, regardless of how much evidence we're getting or how little.
Absolutely. So, one of the last things we're going to talk about is when consent isn't clear. We've gone over this a little bit already, but let's really hammer home some of these points. Evidence, a lot of times, is going to be ambiguous.
Mhm.
We're not going to have a really clear understanding or communication. If you do, that's awesome. Roll with that. But sometimes it's not clear. It's okay to make your best guess and, don't second guess your body or your thoughts or your emotions or what you feel. Avoid forcing interpretations. Once again, I think this was like the first episode we ever did. Don't assume what they are trying to communicate to you. Try and look at it from as many different
Yeah.
perspectives as you can.
Don't make a story
Don't,
out of
don't
three
make a
words.
story out of something. Just because they knocked on a wall doesn't mean that they're going to try and hit you. That's not what it is. You can't assume what they're doing or understand what they're doing because you don't know. If you're unsure whether a spirit is comfortable, we talked about some of these things. Slow down, take your time, change the topics, end the session if you need. There's lots of options. And once again, if you don't know what to do, write it down.
Comfort offerings.
Comfort offerings. It's okay to have, some ideas of ways to end a conversation, ways to start a conversation, what to do if this happens. That's all okay. And then almost always, 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 always side with respect rather than uncertainty.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so building trust over time. You are not entitled to having a spirit trust you, even if they live in your house. You are not entitled to their trust. And so trust develops through consistency. Trust is built, it is not freely given. In most cases, will you get some of these spirits who like meet you and immediately are like, you are my best friend and I love you so much. I'm
You
going to tell you
will.
everything. You will. We have had that, Nucha. But in most cases, that's not what's happening. In most cases, you build that trust with consistency by showing them on a consistent basis every single day that you're with them, every single day that you work with them, that they have autonomy when you are around. You are a safe place for them. That can take you 2 days to earn, that can take you 5 years. And with some spirits, you will never get it at all. We have a couple of those, and that's okay. We are not entitled to their trust. We do the best. We want them to trust us. We want them to feel comfortable. But if they don't, they have that right.
And remember too that we've had many, many, many experiences where a spirit has come communicated with us for like the first or second time, and they feel like they have to share their story because maybe
Yes.
if they've been investigated before, they're like, oh, my job during this is to tell them what happened to me.
We've
It's
had
very
that.
clear to
Yeah.
have them, to talk about them and go, "Hey, you don't need to share your story with me." Or, "Hey, if you are really concerned about something that maybe happened, during their lifespan, if they, were in trouble for something that they did, comfort them, be like, "Hey, we don't have to talk about this right now. It's okay. We can talk about something else." And a lot of times, like you'll be like, "Really? Like, can we talk about toys?" And you're like, "Yeah, of course we can talk about toys. You want to talk about the pets? What do you want to talk
Yeah.
about?"
Sometimes it's not
It's
trust, it's
it's really
obligation.
huge. Yeah. So
Yeah.
being able to skirt around that is also super important.
Yeah, we have seen that a couple times where you can tell a spirit feels obligated to share their story and it's not because they trust us. We have had, like, I remember when Lizzie got here. First day we met her and Mitch was like, "Oh, tell me about yourself." He's meaning like what you're interested in, you know? And she's like, "I'm Lizzie. This is my age. I'm dead, by the way. This is how I die." And she just starts rattling through it. And it was like, it was almost like a script. It was like she had been through that before with investigators. So she hears, "Tell me about yourself." And she's like, "Okay, here's my rap sheet of all my problems." And sometimes when that happens, like even if you're interested, being like, "Hey, by the way, just so you know, you don't have to tell me all that, like, if you don't want to." And if they continue, great. But if
Yeah.
you're
And
like, "Hey, like, if you're not, you don't have to say that. That's not what I
mhm.
meant." Like I meant like, tell me about yourself. What makes you you? What do you like? What do you dislike? What are your interests, your hobbies? What animal do you like? What color do you like? Like it doesn't have to be that. But we've seen that a couple times with like spirits who have been investigated for a long period of time. This happens with like haunted objects a lot, where they're like, "Okay, here's another investigator. Here's my script of shit that I have to share with them."
Yeah.
So yeah,
Especially ones that have been investigated by multiple teams in the past or have kind of a history of over and over and over, maybe being with a lot of different spirit
they get like
keepers
way too good at being investigated.
can be really, really difficult on them. So comforting them and telling them, like, I can't even tell you how many spirits we've had to be like, "Hey, like this is your home, like you live here, like you're not going to get
Yeah.
sold, like you're not going to go anywhere else, like you're welcome to stay here as long as you want. If you want to leave, we can make that happen." But like you would be surprised how far and how much respect that can gain you
Yeah.
in a very short amount of time.
We also tell them, even though we are investigators, that is what we do. We do locations, we do fresh investigations on haunted objects that haven't been like investigated before. But even though like we are investigators, like if you are in our home, you live here, we're your caretakers. We're not investigating you. We are building a relationship with you. We want to get to know you. We care about you. Like you are not coming here to be studied. And I think that's very important because we've been asked, like, "Oh, are you investigating me?" Like they even know the lingo, some of them. "Oh, are you investigating me?" And we're like, "No, like we literally just want to get to know you." And so sometimes changing that wording can really help build a relationship with a haunted doll. The other thing is following through on promises. This is huge. If you tell them you're going to spirit box every Sunday, you better stick to it. And if you can't stick to it, rather than just like letting it drop, explaining to them why you can't. "Hey, I have a really bad migraine today. I'm really sorry. I know I told you that we could spirit box on Sundays, but today I'm just not feeling well enough to do it. I'm really sorry. We'll resume next week." So they're not left hanging. They rely on you, and you can build trust with them just by showing them that you are a reliable person and you do what you say you're going to do. The other thing, giving spirits time rather than demanding immediate responses. This is a huge way to build trust. They don't feel like they're being demanded. Accurate storytelling and respectful representation demonstrate that you are trustworthy people to communicate. This is so important. Um, Never tell a spirit what their story is. Never twist a spirit's story to fit your narrative that you want. I see this a lot where it's like, "Oh, this story is not extreme enough, so I'm gonna, dramatize the story to make it more interesting." Or, "Oh, I want the spirit to have the same interests as me, so I'm gonna like twist it so they're more similar to myself." Like their story is their story. You don't correct them on their story under any circumstances. You don't question it. You don't change it. You document their story as they said it. You don't interpret it, you don't analyze it. Their story, as they said it, is their story. Their story is not the narrative that you crafted around the information that they gave you. That's so important. And you will destroy trust in a relationship with a spirit if you do that. So that is super, super important. I would say probably one of the most important things that we've talked about today. And then the last one in building trust is relationships, if they develop at all, should happen naturally rather than being forced. Um, I have had spirits that were here for a year before they were like, "Oh yeah, you're my friend." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh," like just because they live in your house doesn't mean that they're like your bestie. Like that's something you earn through building trust, through building that relationship. Just because you paid their invoice does not mean that you are their friend. And I know that that can be hard to hear because everybody like has this glorified relationship of like, oh, I'm gonna buy this haunted doll and it's gonna be my invisible best friend. And you know, when I'm alone, I'll have someone to talk to. Like sometimes that's not the case. And they are entitled to not be your friend. Um, can you build relationships with them? Hell yeah, you can. Like we do that. But we also have like spirits who, they're not into the, oh, I love you, you're my bestie kind of line of thinking. So let and not misrepresenting the relationship you have with them either. That is a huge part of building trust. Like the relationship that you have with them is the experiences that you guys have shared together. And representing that accurately and looking at that accurately is very important.
Yes. Let's go over some big closing thoughts.
Yes. There's a
Right?
lot of information.
I know it's a lot of information. We're going to try and wrap it up in a neat little bow. First and foremost, the paranormal field, by nature of what it is going to have uncertainty, but you can always choose respect.
Yes.
Always choose respect over anything else. Regardless of how you feel, you need to be respectful with all of your communication or otherwise. If spirits are truly archon individuals, obviously consent should be the foundation of every interaction. It is crucial, 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 crucial for all the things we talked about today in creating good relationships that consent is mandatory. Even if someone is skeptical of paranormal phenomena, having investigators, approach a situation with empathy, patience, and respect, you're going to have better results and it's going to be better. So even if you have someone that's like, you know what, I don't believe in this at all, I think this is a bunch of BS, whatever it may be, you can still have respect because even if they think it may or may not be real or they don't think it's real, you can have them say, hey, if you're going to come into my home or we're going to go somewhere together, you need to be respectful of the space. You need to be able to not do things that are inappropriate or say inappropriate things about them. That is a very, 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 very quick way to get kicked out of our house.
You want to get kicked out of our house? That's how you do
That
it.
is how you do it. And it's important to remember that
I've done it.
stories behind hauntings often begin with real human lives, and therefore consent is king.
Yeah, and real human tragedies as well. Um, I knew that this was gonna be, like, a super hefty episode with a lot of information, but I didn't realize until we started, like, expanding on it how hefty it was gonna be. What I will do for this episode in particular, I've done this before for other ones where it's just, like, a lot of information, and a lot of, like, critical information. I will turn this episode into a written guide as well.
Ooh,
And I
nice.
will post the link to that in the description down below and also in our resources tab on Discord so that you can have this information as a written guide that you can refer back to without having to watch us info dump for, an hour
A little
all over again. You can have it.
a little cheat sheet.
Yeah, a little cheat sheet. So I will create that and put that out there for you guys. We're not done though. We have a really awesome spirit of the week to share with you. She is a sweetheart. She has been here for a long time. We adore her. And I think this topic is very reflective of what our experience has been with her and getting to know her. So stay tuned, have a dance break, get yourself a snack, whatever. Stay tuned. We will be back with our spirit of the week after this commercial break.
I was built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past. I'm overachieving. Now I feel
wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name, check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change, possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen. I won't let them fester me, I know most are festering. Negativity is a plague for the mentally weak. No mercy, all I got is working. Never stop searching, never quench the thirsty. I'm toxic and psychotic, but there's logic, you can't stop it. It's been chronic since I was a boy, so neurotic and chaotic.
Built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the cast, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grave and put your foot on the...
And we are back with our spirit of the week.
It's
It is
Pelagie.
Miss Pelagie. Taylor, why don't you tell us a little bit about Pelagie?
Yes. So Pelagie is one of the sweetest spirits that we have ever worked with. She is so endlessly kind. And I think, I chose her for this episode because our experience when we got Pelagie really highlighted the importance of consent. So Pelagie was one of our spirits that took the longest to feel comfortable talking to us. So Pelagie did not talk to us for 6 months. We had her for 6 months before she ever said a word to us. Rather than assuming she was unhappy here, coming to conclusions about why that may be, theorizing and problem solving and trying to fix that, we just gave her the space to be quiet because that was what she was choosing to do and talk to us when she was ready. And I'm so glad that we didn't jump to conclusions and analyze that and come up with our own reasons for why it took her 6 months to talk. Because when she did start talking to us, she was so nice.
She talks to us all the time.
Said multiple times how happy she was to be here. She had very clearly been studying us for 6 months because she had some health issues. She's a kid and was very cautious about like allergies and our health and making sure we were okay. And so like, she brought up how she liked banana bread like the first time, but then she said, well, Mitchell, you don't have to get me banana bread because you can't eat gluten. And like she
was
knew,
very conscious of it. She knew
so much about us and she wasn't unhappy. She was figuring out where she was. She's a spirit from 1910,
and
I believe.
She's very inquisitive.
Yeah, 1910. And so like obviously like, being the high-tech home that we are, it was probably quite a bit of a culture shock. She's also from France. She's not from here. French is her primary language. And so it just took her a little bit more time. There was nothing wrong. And obviously she's been here a long time now. So obviously since then, she has talked to us many, many times.
Yes.
She has gone on live. She has talked to viewers. She loves to talk about horses.
She's precious.
And caring for animals. Something else that Pelagie really loves is we've had quite a few times where we've done things online where like, our haunted dolls can interact with haunted dolls in other homes. Almost every single time it's Pelagie who shows up for that.
She loves it.
Yeah, to like talk to the other kids' spirits in other people's houses and play games with them. And like she's super, super, super engaging and interactive. It was just those first 6 months, like she wasn't ready yet. And I'm so grateful that we gave her that space because it led to a really, really great and positive relationship that was on her terms, not our timeline, because we were excited we got a new haunted doll and had to talk to her right then and there. So Pelagie is amazing. She is so sweet. She is so kind. And I think her answers will definitely illustrate that for us.
Yes. So let's get into some of those questions. A reminder of how this works. We do a spirit box session with Pelagie. We ask her questions that are given to us from you, our viewers, and I always write on Pelagie's answers word for word, and I write down your questions word for word to try and be able to make it as accurate as possible.
And if you would like to see those sessions, the actual recorded session is available for you guys. Our TikTok subscribers who get the weekly Estes Method videos, you guys get these videos as well. So you can actually see the session and how it unfolded for yourself if you're interested in that.
Yes. So first question is from Tasha. So Tasha asks, have you named the horses that have been given to you as offerings or gifts? Pelagie has many horses.
She loves her horses.
You made it very clear she loves her horses.
It's very important.
And Pelagie said, they are wild. And I said, so they have no names? And Pelagie said, not for wild ones.
That's so cute.
And I was like, that's a good point.
Okay.
So she has her wild horses,
All right.
not to be tamed.
No.
Our next question is from Tasha. Tasha's question is, what is your best advice for making new friends? And Pelagie said, don't lie. If you lie, some people, they don't want to trust you. It's a fair point.
Valid.
That's a very
So
valid point.
valid. Love that.
Next question is from Spider. Hello, Pelagie. I'm Spider. I am also a big fan of horses. Who is your favorite individual you met during Mod Madness? And Pelagie said, it was really good to see Emily. Did you know she's from France too? And then I said, oh, did you guys speak in French? She said, yes. Usually have to speak in English, which makes sense. But I feel like being able to speak her native language probably
Very exciting.
very exciting
Yeah.
for her. Next question is also from Spider. Spider asks, what's the most important thing about owning a horse? Good question. And Pelagie says, you have to keep them clean.
She loves when things are clean.
Yes, she's very orderly. She likes
loves when
things that are
clean.
clean.
'Cause if
She
it's not
likes
clean,
organized.
you can get sick.
You-
Very important.
Very important. Next question is from Spider. Who do you play with the most in Taylor and Mitchell's home? And Pelagie said, Akela, which we know. They are like
we know.
homies. They're homies.
They're besties.
Leading to our next question. And so next question is also from Tasha. Who is someone from any time in history, the past or the present, that you wish you could have been friends with in life? And Pelagie said, Akela is perfect friend in life. I didn't have any.
For some context,
Precious.
she had a lot of medical issues. She had a heart condition. So exercising, exertion, playing, going outside, like doing things were very dangerous for her, being exposed to germs, things like that. So her parents really kept her quiet and kind of contained and isolated from the world just to keep her healthy. So she really didn't have the same experiences as other children. She was pretty much, secluded to her home.
Mhm.
And being in the early 1900s, they didn't have the medical care that we do now. And so kind of the solution to a lot of these things was just to do nothing. And that was the case for her. So a lot of those life experiences she missed out on. And she has really enjoyed getting to be around other kids and getting to play and getting to try those things.
Yes.
She still holds herself to the same kind of standards though. Like we'll be like, oh, did you go play outside? Because a lot of our kids play outside and we have stuff outside for them. And she'll be like, oh no, you can't go outside. You'll
Can't
get
go
sick.
outside, you'll get sick.
So yeah, she's big into, she doesn't leave the house. She doesn't, because she still holds herself to that, but she has made a lot of good friendships here and we're very excited for her for that.
Yes. Next question is from Spider. Who do you play with the most in Taylor and Mitchell's home? And Pelagie said, Akela.
Every answer is about Akela.
And
So
I asked,
cute.
what do you do for fun? And she said, play ball.
All right.
There you go. Next question. This was a good question. This is from Spider. Do you have any pet peeves? My pet peeve is when people start to eat dinner before everyone has been seated.
She's so happy. I've never known her to have any pet peeves. Like she
Although-
never complains about anything.
Although to be fair, this is a valid pet peeve. First of all, she said, when the same clothes as me.
yeah, you can't.
That's fair.
Can't wear the same
You'd be
clothes.
like,
as
you
Pelagie.
can't wear
That's
the same
not
clothes
cool.
as Paige. That's not
That's
cool.
not cool.
Next question from Spider. Do you play any instruments? If not, is there one you would like to learn? And Pelagie said, I could play piano.
Okay.
which makes sense.
Yeah.
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 Last question. This might have been her favorite question. From Spider. What is your favorite accessory that a horse could wear? I like when they wear goggles. And I cannot express to you how quickly Pelagie answered this question. Like literally immediately.
Which for her is unusual. She's
'Cause
one that
normally
takes a
she's
while to like
takes a
think about it.
while.
She's very intentional. It takes her
Yes.
a while.
And she said without a second's notice, braids. So she is very passionate about braids.
The braids.
in
Gotta
her
love the
horses.
braids.
I then asked Pelagie, is there anything else you want to talk about? She said, no, great day.
So that is Pelagie.
There you go.
She is such a fantastic spirit.
Yes.
We've definitely learned a lot working with her, and just that she was our first spirit that like we really had to give a lot of time. But that time was so worth giving. To be able to have the relationship we have with her now. I think if we rushed her, we pushed it, we did any of that, I think that would have freaked her out.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that we approached it the way that we did, because she really is such a happy spirit.
Mhm.
So that's a really good example of why you never make assumptions about a spirit's intentions, because sometimes their intention is because they care.
Yep.
And she really wanted to have the experience she wanted to have here. And we love having her. She's been with us for
Long time.
long time now.
Mhm.
Long time, since 2024, I believe, was when she got here. She's been here a long time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it has been a great experience getting to know our horse loving girl. And yeah, she's just fantastic.
Mhm.
So thank you everyone for being here. Welcome back. Just a reminder, our episodes are now every other week, so we can space in some other different content. We have had a number of videos come out since we saw you last, so go check those out. 2 location investigations, 9 fairy backstories. Our Faye did a folklore video that's spirit box sessions to teach you about fairy folklore. They worked very hard on that.
Lots of good stuff.
So a lot of new things out. We will be back in 2 weeks, and our next episode will have a guest, which is very exciting, and it is a guest that we absolutely adore. And that is going to be another very educational episode about how to conduct an investigation. So we look forward to seeing you then. Until then, have a great rest of your weekend, and we will talk to you later. Bye everybody.